There we are. All right, it is Thursday, December 5th. My calendar says November for some reason, but it's definitely December. And this is a check-in meeting for design tasks for Backdrop CMS. On our agenda, we have, there were a bunch of issues in our last design user experience meeting that got resolved either at the sprint or after the sprints, which is great. So there were a bunch of issues for the forum and a bunch of issues for the API site, or one issue in particular for the API site, and then a bunch of little ones that applied to the common theme across all of them. So all that's remaining from those tasks is to make a new release of the theme and apply it to all of our shared sites. And that should help with some like code syntax highlighting that we see on lots of sites, and some other various little things like the blue color is more accessible, the base font size is a little larger, to try and make everything easier for people to use and consistent across all sites. So I, before this meeting, made a tag on that module, but I haven't actually made a release, or sorry, on the Borg theme, but I haven't made a release. So that's the only thing left there. And then once that release is out, I could use some help replacing the base theme on those other sites if anyone wanted to jump in on those. Back to the product. So we have a long list of user experience issues. If you want to search the queue, any issue tagged with UX is something that we like to focus on, is improving user experience. We pulled out a couple of them here that we think are particularly important. One of them is the language for how to describe row width behavior on our new flexible template creator. And it looks like we have a pull request where we need some help with help text. I looked at that a while ago. I thought it looked pretty good. I'll take a look at it again today. If anyone else wants to take a look at that and see what help text you think might be helpful. I don't know if there's anything in there now, recommendations that we need to decide on.
I think we're pretty close. There was one final recommendation that I could probably merge into the poll that hasn't been merged in yet. Okay. And then we just need people to kind of approve it.
Okay, that sounds great. There's this common request for having a theme function to display both the human name and machine name for a thing. The thing could be something like a content type or a view or a layout, flexible template. We see this pattern all over the user interface, and we seem to have adopted a different way to describe both the human name and the machine name in various different places. It looks like what we need is a long form version where they're spread out in one line, and a stacked version. So if you have to display it in a table where you don't have very much column width. And I think that that can be achieved by adding a class into the outer wrapper of the theme function where you can have it be stacked or not stacked, and it'll either float them or block them or however they need to be aligned. So I wanted to give that a try. I have assigned that issue to myself to work on it. Yes. I think it's possible, but I want to try it before I swear.
Are you thinking like spans and then those contained within another like div or something, or?
Yeah, I was thinking 3 spans and then like an outer span and 2 inner spans. And then when we need to make them stacked, we can block the inner 2 and then it'll stack them vertically.
Yeah, sounds good.
And then let's see, we have fields that are dependent on other fields need to be indented. So this is in particular in a form where you're filling out something, you click on something and a new thing becomes available. It would be nice to have that showing visually the relationship between the 2 form fields. We don't have an issue number for that one yet, but Gregory, looks like you're going to find it or open a new one. It doesn't exist.
Yes. So we have an issue specific to views, to a specific part of the views, but this needs to be like more global for the.
Okay, that's right. I remember that from last time. And then we wanted to change the way our drop-down menus work to make a better user experience. I think the status on that was that we wanted to look at what's going on in the Smart Menus library to see if someone else has reported the same issue and if there's any progress happening there. I would love it if our solution to this would be to apply a patch to Smart Menus and we can get that fixed in upstream. But if not, we can, of course, modify it on our end, but I would prefer less of that if possible. That issue is number 2370, and it looks like we currently need more feedback on that too to make sure everybody is sure that what we're going to do is going to be an improvement. The next one is to look for select list options that have only one available option and make sure that that option is set to default. I really liked your approach, Gregory, where site, like system-wide, anytime there's a select list anywhere, we count the number of items. And if there's a number of items equal to 1, we just always set that as default. Nate had some other recommended options where we could just remove the form element entirely and print the value. And we could change the type from a select list to a value, or something else that we can visually display it.
Yeah, make the element disabled and selected by default, like ticked.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor, after all, of hiding the entire element, because there are cases where it's expected, or at least it provides information like feedback on what is the selection.
Yeah.
So I think that either outputting it as simple text or disabled field, disabled and selected, makes more sense.
Yeah, I'm not even sure disabled is necessary.
Yeah, because they won't be able
Don't be able to change it anyway.
unless it's a checkbox. Yeah, the radios. Yeah.
Yeah. And then let's see. That issue is number 1442, if anyone wants to look at that. And then promoted modules on the installer. I haven't looked at this since last time we talked about it, but I think we needed a summary. Oh, wait, there's one there. So it says the things we need to do are add checkbox on backdropcms.org, which we have. Add the checkbox value into the project module feed. I'm not sure if we have a dedicated issue for that one or not. Use the value of that feed to add a class into the installer module. So that would be core installer module. And then we need to do something in the theme to make the promoted module look promoted. And we have recommendations, visual recommendation in this issue to do it dark blue, light blue. So a light blue background with a dark blue header, which I think looks nice. So do you think that background color should happen in the installer module or in the 7 theme?
I wouldn't mind either way, but it seems specific to the installer.
Okay. I think that would make sense too if the, so in the screenshots in that issue, there's a section of information text at the top. And I think the information text has to be added by the installer module. And so if we're matching that format, which it looks like we are with the colors below, it would make sense for that color match to come from the installer module as well. But any admin theme, if we have the class there, could choose to override it if they wanted to. So I think we'll be fine either way.
Yeah, it seems that we're using the same colors as the info status messages. So yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna change this to a meta, just so that we remember there's lots of things that need to be done here. And then it looks like I don't know if there's already an issue for project module, but we get to link that here.
Yeah, so I think that the first step was to make sure that the output of the JSON file or whatever it is that sites consume, which is coming from b.org, includes that information of things being promoted.
Right, that's the installer module that's the project module that's generating that feed. So I think we need an issue against the contrib project module to make that modification. There might already be one there because we've been down this road before. But if it's there, we need to add, it would be good to add a link into this issue too.
So are we thinking that in general, the project module, such a feature would be helpful?
Yeah.
In general. Okay, for people that are using it in other projects. Okay,
or if we decide not to put it in, we need to make sure that feed is alterable so that a customization can come from somewhere else. And I don't know yet if it is, so.
Yeah, because I was thinking something that might be done in the b.org modules series.
Yeah.
Because it is specific to us at the moment, but if you think that, yeah.
Okay, maybe we should just look at it first then before we worry about creating the issue. Okay, and then that Another thing we could do that might help here is if we were to decide on what the class names were, we could start on the other issue, which would be when those class names are present, change the colors of the table. That wouldn't be blocked by the project feed update. We could, manually throw the class in and see if it looked right. I think that's probably a much easier task than the project feed thing. So if we want to do those in parallel, we could. Okay. Other things on the design agenda include one issue specifically focused on design for the hero blocks. And I think we have a consensus on what the fix for this particular issue is going to be. We had a secondary discussion about, in general, how are we going to add CSS changes to core? I'm not sure if that one came down with a decision, but I think, Tim, you were going to try something and see how that worked.
Which issue are we looking at?
So this is the how to add CSS changes to core.
Sure. What was I?
So
I'm trying to remember this.
We had thought about doing like one CSS file for every
Right.
version, and then we decided that was maybe too much, and you were going to do like one CSS file that's like new stuff, and then we could have a checkbox.
Okay. Well, I don't remember agreeing to actually do anything yet myself because I'm not sure how to do that. I think what we talked about was this idea of having a single CSS file that we made changes to with an optional, with an optional checkbox right in the UI where you could say, keep me up to date or not. Okay. Is that where we left it? Which is I think I updated the issue is what I did after the last.
I thought, so I was thinking about that this morning as I was looking over this agenda, and there's one case that I thought of that might be frustrating. And this really also just depends on how long we're going to stick with Backdrop 1, where I think right now we promise it'll be around for at least 3 more years.
Right.
So if we have somebody who adopts Backdrop after we've already put some changes into this file, and so the theme that they're building is a sub-theme of basis, and it assumes there's, the block padding or the hero block margin or whatever is wherever we decide to put it. And then later on, after they've launched their site, we add some other breaking CSS change that would affect their theme, and they uncheck that box. Now their theme is going to be broken because they've already compensated for the position of the margin. Right. So I think we just need to figure out if we want to worry about these crazy edge cases or not. Because you'd have to have somebody that had installed Backdrop in a very specific version, compensated for a very specific CSS change, and then another one would be one that would be breaking for them. So having those 3 things in alignment, I think.
Well, you wouldn't have them uncheck the box, would you? You would. Anybody that had installed prior to that would have to check the box to get anything written. Although maybe that won't work, because then.
We'd hope it would be checked by default for new installs so they'd get all our fixes.
Well, can it be checked by default only for people after a certain point? Like if
but if checked by default when you install.
So, I think once you've installed it and that checkbox is there, when you check that box, you're basically agreeing that there may be, that you're willing to accept minor changes that you might have to deal with in the future.
Yeah.
It's the difference between saying just keep.
It doesn't matter whether you check the box or not. You're going to have to fix breaking changes, because when you uncheck the box, it'll also be breaking changes. So, yeah, it would either be a box that people like actively opt. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I guess I don't understand the problem, because this is what I see a couple. If you're upgrading and you've already got a theme built, so before we implement this, then the box would not be checked, and you would have to affirmatively check it.
Right.
So if it is checked, then then you're new, and you're starting with a new theme, and you're saying, going forward, I accept the fact that, I'm getting the latest changes, and that may break. And if you uncheck it, you're not going to break anything because you haven't started anything yet.
Oh, no, so I would say you check the box saying, I'm gonna deal with breaking changes. And then in the future, your site breaks and you're like, oh, never mind, I don't want those changes. And then you uncheck the box.
No,
So now
oh,
you're
yeah,
breaking changes both ways.
right. I think what you're saying is once you check that box, you're committed. You can't just uncheck it and have things get fixed.
Yeah, it's just what's the point of having a checkbox saying I'm gonna deal with breaking changes if you're gonna have to deal with them either way.
So
Well,
it's the respective thing of when we convert blocks to be reusable. So once you've ticked the box and you made the checkbox block reusable, you cannot convert it back to a non-reusable one.
Once you check this box, your site will break, whether you want it to or
Well,
not. And so then
it might. I mean, it's still,
not check it by default for new sites, which means all new sites are going to be just as broken as they are today, which is what's the point of fixing them?
We also discussed the option of having a separate contrib module theme, sorry, and then
Or module.
or
I think-
module things, yeah, and then people actively using that, but then how do we name it?
We could
Well-
also, if it was a module, that could also be something that got promoted and then put into core when 2 came out.
sure. I mean, that might be a different issue. It might not. The problem we're trying to solve is how can we fix basis
Right.
for in core, right? So
Yeah.
a contrib module doesn't fix basis in core. That just gives us an option to make basis better outside of core,
Yeah,
right? So these other options were how to keep it, to be able to update it in core. And we've talked about a couple of different solutions. One was, each time we do something like that, we add a new style sheet. The other was just a single style, providing people sort of a one-time checkbox. I mean, I'm not seeing the problem, Jen, that you are in terms of, I think,
probably how I'm seeing it is the checkbox is basically like, do you want to include this style sheet or not? So,
right. The
but
style sheet that could, that's going to, it might bring you some benefits, but it might also cause things to break.
right.
and
But
you-
if you check the box and say include the style sheet,
Yeah.
and there's a warning on it that says things might break, and then
Right.
later you're like, okay, things are broken. I regret that decision. I'm going to uncheck it.
Well, it's too late.
But
I mean,
broken.
the point of that box is once you check it, you're accepting the responsibility that you'll have to fix things if we break. And we're not going to be breaking
Yeah.
major things, right?
I don't think we should have a checkbox that's like my site is going to be broken. The checkbox should be something like improve my site with this file and have a warning. And
Yeah.
then I think that if there's a way we can do that where later on someone can turn it off and their site isn't broken, that would be better. So that
Okay.
no one has, the use case I'm trying to avoid is like my site's been launched for a
Sure.
year and I'm not touching the code anymore. And now in the future, regardless of what happens, there's no setting that'll make it so that I don't have to hire a developer to fix my code.
Right.
If the box is checked, my site breaks. If the box is unchecked, my site breaks.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. And
We had a way where it would be like, once a site is launched, you don't have a developer anymore. It can continue to live and people can use the user interface to do updates or whatever, but they don't need to have a developer on staff to continue to deal with these kind of
Sure.
things. If there's a way we
I'm,
can checkbox that's like, do you want to include this theme change? You can say yes, and then it'll be there and you accept the risk of maybe your CSS broken, but you can uncheck the box and then your site goes back to how it was before. That would be ideal, where you don't need to hire a developer to deal with the changes that had happened between
Well-
you built your site and when the CSS change went in.
Isn't this a matter of just people needing to have backups of their own site and themes and stuff?
What was that?
Isn't this just a matter of people having backups?
No, because we've changed the code in core.
oh,
So
yeah.
it doesn't matter. I mean, they could choose to never update core. That would be an option.
well, how about this, which is that, I don't know, that it's like a revisioning. There's like version numbers, which correspond to the release. And you can just pick which version you want. I don't know if we can do that within one file. Then do we just end up with a bunch of files anyways? We're just providing a UI
Yeah.
for them to pick which
So I think that would make the most sense. I don't know how much changing of the front end we're gonna end up doing, but if we had a checkbox, if we did say something like that, these can only go into minor versions, they can't go into bug fix versions, and we had a checkbox for each minor version that included a style sheet, and we specifically said, and like the checkbox would be like, changes in this file will include improvements to, and we could put like hero block, like whatever. If we think there's some kind of drop down menu, whatever, there's something in there that's changing, and we can put a little description text in that says something like, if you know, by checking this box, you understand that changes to your theme might be necessary. And then for every new install, all of the versions are checked. And then for every old install, none of them ever get checked. And so that way,
That sounds like a plan.
individual files, as if your site is up to, you're like, oh, I want that improvement, you can check it and see if your site's broken, you can uncheck it and your site's not broken. So just something like that. And I know that the concept of like having a new file for every minor release seems overwhelming, especially from like what that page of checks boxes might look like at the end. But I also think that we haven't done it yet. We've got like 2 issues, I think, right now that we're facing that are going to need this. If we can push those both into one release or one file, that might be a good way to do it. And then think about like, okay, the next time we run into them, is it worth doing it urgently, or do we wait a release and push it with another one, just so we can try and minimize the amount of front end changes that are going in.
Yeah, I think that what you described now is the safest option, as in people, if people can experiment with the new changes, and if it breaks the site, they can reverse. So it sounds good. It's a little bit of overhead for us because we will need to be adding those as separate CSS files, I guess. But I think it's worth it in the end, because one of our values is that we care for the end users more than the developers. So it's in alignment with our values.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see if there was a way we could do it that was less overhead. I just haven't thought of anything that is going to avoid my site might be broken in the future and I don't have a developer scenario.
Yeah. I was thinking something similar, as in sort of like including a sub-theme of basis, and then calling it basis edge or something like the respective sort of like what do D8 call it, experimental module sort of like thing, and then we can have that be on by default. But that means that if we find changes that break that one, then we have to create a sub-theme of that, which propagates. But having it as separate checkboxes within, like, as settings for the main theme, sounds like a sort of like a solution to that. I like that, the idea of that.
So my only, I mean, I like this option. Certainly my only reservation is that, like, I can submit pull requests for these, some of these CSS changes that we're talking about fixing, but none of them will be useful until this feature is implemented. And I'm not sure I can implement this feature.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to put,
it could put a bottleneck on this, on theme development, that's all. But if it doesn't, then great.
if there was one there already, Tim, that you could copy, like we had one pull request that added the style sheet, the logic, would you be able to do it for the second one? So I think right now it's hard because it's all theoretical.
Well, I think,
But if we had an example in core already,
I think the background color on the title is RTBC, isn't it? That hasn't actually went into core yet.
I think it did. Let's see.
Oh.
I don't know for sure.
The
I feel
actual
it's just RTBC, but I could be wrong.
the change for the color in the
Color, but
yeah, that's in.
it's in
So-
already? Okay.
Yes, new sandboxes. If you generate new sandboxes like new pull requests, they already include that.
Okay. Oh, you know what? Yes, he did. It hasn't been released yet, but it's been
It
burned.
hasn't. It's
Yeah.
in the 114 something. We can sort of like push it to 150.
Okay. I don't know if there's another one. I don't think there's another pull request yet. There's 1 or 2 issues so that will qualify. You know, one of them is the space between the hero blocks. If you put 2 hero blocks,
Yeah.
there's a space between them that's not useful. So it would be fairly easy, I think, to write a pull request for that. And that would be the first one that,
There's also an old fix we had for floating things that we included, but we had to revert when it broke a bunch of stuff. We could do something like that too, where like we could fix it for new sites, but not for old sites. So I think there's some old issues we could revisit also that might benefit from this.
How do you guys feel about so currently if a theme enables support for color module, the whole theme settings page is sort of like occupied by the controls for that. So if a theme had to have settings, then this will be lost. Sort of like, how do you guys feel? Do you feel that we should have like a separate sort of like tab, like a secondary menu
Well,
for color and settings, or everything in one page?
I think some themes already have that. You know, that the theme, if you're creating a sub or a custom contrib theme, you can do that. So if
Yeah.
what you're saying is to add that capability, I don't understand, because like how would that get added to core? The only way that's going to happen is if somebody's actually writing code to create extra config in a theme, and then they could presumably know how to do that.
No, I mean like the
So
how.
we're going to put the checkboxes. Do they go on the same form with the color settings? Or
Yes.
they go on separate tabs?
They need
Well,
to be,
sure.
yeah, either in a field set or something like separate that is sort of like, or yeah. So we say basis
I would
basis
think
set.
we could put them in a field set that's like collapsed or something.
Yeah.
So that people who are new to Backtop, like, what are these checkboxes? I don't know, but people who need them can find them there. I mean, color module too. There, some themes have a ton of color settings and other ones just have like 2. And so I think that's also tricky.
Yeah, the reason why I mention it is that because I had basis in mind, and I'm actually looking at the page, and it's like the whole page is like filled with color select controls, and four what you call it, field sets that are expanded by default. So
What
the
if
whole
there's one at the
basic-
bottom that was collapsed by default? Is that a good place for it? Maybe. Another thing too is that what this would do is it would make any basis, do basis subthemes inherit theme settings? Is this still a bug?
That's another thing. So there was a bug about inheritance of color module settings for subthemes, but I'm not sure if they have problem with inheritance of
Other settings.
settings. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. There's a pull request to fix the problem with inheriting color settings that has, I believe, not been committed yet.
Okay.
Yep.
We should look at that and see if it's a fix for all settings or if it's color specific.
Yeah.
Because
I
then
think-
we could be creating something where it would be really confusing if you had a basis theme and then you put in a basis sub theme and it like didn't include the style sheets the basis included.
Right.
Because those boxes not being checked or that not being passed. So
Right.
So the team, because you're more across on that, what was the initial sort of like drive for that issue? Is it that people expect if they make changes to if they add support for color module in the base theme, they want that color support to be inherited in the sub theme, but not the actual settings, right? So you can individually change the colors.
I don't.
I think it's if you create a sub theme, but you don't. So like I didn't run into this problem because when I created a sub theme, I set up color module in my sub theme. And I think in this case, and I think the problem was if you didn't, right? If you wanted to inherit the color module configuration from basis.
Yeah.
And so you didn't actually move it into your sub theme, that didn't work.
Okay. Yep, all right. I'll have
Right.
to revisit.
I'm pretty sure that was the scenario. It's been a few weeks now since I played around with this stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I haven't touched it at all. I can't remember
mean,
it. Vaguely
it's-
remember.
It is stuff that I've been actively working with. It's kind of thrown, and I mentioned this before, it's the fact that this pull request is kind of on hold has thrown a wrench into my Tatsu development because I wanted to make that a sub-theme starter kit, but until that pull request gets in, I can't assume that I'm inheriting color module settings. So I have to basically recreate them in the sub-theme.
Yeah.
And then I start wondering why I have a sub-theme at all and why I don't just fork it, because it's like if I'm not inheriting color module, then it doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, Jen, the way that the settings form for colors works now is that there's a left sidebar and a right sidebar. The right holds the preview and the left holds the entire form, including the submit button. So if we add any settings, it will be added only in the sidebar, and it makes it look as if it refers to the whatever is in the preview.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even the submit button is there, like in that form, in that left, sorry, sidebar.
How does color module do that? Does it alter it? I'm gonna open it up. Yeah, I think, so that sounds like another problem we need to fix with color module, where it doesn't just take over the whole form. It shouldn't assume that it's the only settings that are available. I don't need to do this on the meeting, but
Yeah, that sounds like a core issue
Yeah.
thing.
yeah. Theme settings alter.
I feel like there's at least one or two contrib themes that have color module plus, although I'm pretty sure they're very old and the color module is probably broken.
Yeah.
So
So it looks like it, let's see where it moves the whole form. I think it just needs to be more gentle with its altering, so that it's like I'm adding my stuff in, but I'm not like rearranging the whole form. And then we can put other stuff either like before or after the color bit. But yeah, I don't see it in here immediately.
I haven't ran into this yet because I haven't built any additional config for any of my themes yet. So, but I would like to, and that will then be a problem.
Okay. Well, let's I'm curious about this now. I'd like to look at it after the meeting, but if
Sure.
we can get through the rest of the items, it looks like we've got, this is the slippery slope where it's like, oh, we have this one minor CSS change. How are we gonna do the CSS change? Oh, let's put it on this form. Oh, this form is color module. We got to fix color module first. So I put one of the related issues in the design issues section. That might also be blocked by the color module thing, but we'll take a look at that today. Okay, we have one more issue I want to talk about, and that is creating a pop-up banner for events. This is issue number 424 in the backdropcms.org queue. Laren posted a new PDF version of the banner, which I took a screenshot of and posted it. This is particularly interesting to me because we have an event coming up in March, and I would love to get all of our materials ready for that event. We have a 10 by 10 booth, and so having this pop-up banner, I think in the front, like next to the table, would be good. But I'm also open to ideas of like what else we might want to have in the booth. They have, like, you can rent like a LCD monitor and put stuff on it for more than it costs to buy an LCD monitor. So it might be worth it to just buy our own if we're going to do that. But that's how I think conferences make a lot of money. But I was thinking, like, if we wanted to have like a 36-inch monitor or something hung on the back wall that just like rotated through screenshots from like the showcase section of the site, that might be compelling enough. We also have a projector we can bring. We can project on the back of our wall. I don't know. Ideas. Ideas.
I helped arrange a TV or a computer monitor in LA from a cousin of mine. But in Baltimore, I know one or two Drupalers. We could just ask if we could borrow a monitor. If we just needed like a 32-inch monitor or something.
Yeah. I was also thinking, like, if we ended up needing to buy one, we could have some kind of policy that would be like, find some like nonprofit in the area that needed one. I don't know if this is a thing. And then I would imagine that a lot of people probably buy things for conferences and then never use them again. If we could find someplace that'd be like, oh, there's this local homeless shelter that really needs a 32-inch monitor. That might be nice to donate.
Sure.
We're going to be spending money. I'd rather spend money that ended up giving something to some local organization than something that just lines the pockets of the people who put on the conference
Sure.
show or whatever.
Agreed.
So I'll add a comment because I mentioned that I would do so. So I really like the design as well. My only sort of like thought there was that from the initial designs that were there, we removed completely any mentions of Drupal 7. And I think I mentioned this before, until Drupal 7 is end of life, I think that we should keep mentioning that. Maybe we can sort of like redesign or remove that thing after 2021 or 2022 when D7 is out of the picture. But until then, because we want to attract audience that is looking for alternatives to D7, I think that it should be mentioned.
Okay.
I'm not sure how you guys think about what
Well,
you think.
the counter argument, Gregory, is that if you mention Drupal at N10, there's a huge audience there, people who might just need a new site, and drawing attention to Drupal at that audience could actually be a negative. I mean,
Yeah.
right? We all know how many nonprofits there are that are sick and tired of their poorly made Drupal 7 sites.
So the reason why I mentioned that is that I was thinking that, say we put this banner in a Drupal event, presenting,
Right.
It seems like we're presenting a totally different CMS.
Right, but we're talking about a non-Drupal event right now. So
Okay, fair enough.
I do think there are the audience we're after right now are people who are stuck on Drupal 7 and don't know what to do. And so I think like having, at least that's what I've experienced talking to nonprofit people this year. I don't know if that's who's going to be there, but it seemed like there are a ton of nonprofit people that are like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And those people don't go to Drupal events anymore because they know they're not going to do Drupal. But that's the use case they're in, is they're like, oh, my stuff is already in Drupal. How are we going to handle it? But I don't know. I think maybe we could have two banners.
This is my other thought. If these things can be printed double-sided,
flip it. I don't think you can do a double-sided thing. Like it's in a like roll and it collapses into a little case. I don't know.
Yeah.
You might be able to just have an attachment though that you can add to it.
Or a separate, like, so I was thinking like if in this particular case, we have a 10 by 10 booth, we could have a pop-up banner like this one that's exactly as it would work in any kind of event. And we put some like cheap, like fast designs, like just big banner on the back. That's the same copy that we had from the earlier version of the banner here that says Drupal 7 evolved. And then that way we can kind of be like, hey, we're a new CMS to people walking by, but then people who are like, I'm stuck on Drupal 7 might see the like background, like other stuff too.
Something like that, could work. I see that working. Yeah,
I agree.
The nice banner lasts longer because after the end of Drupal 7, we still use it at events, and then the cheap banner we just throw out.
So I guess that the banner itself, like the case and the tripod or whatever it is that it sends it would still remain the same. But if you want to change the actual the banner itself, how much would that cost? Like, what are we talking like about?
I don't know.
Okay.
Trade show conference banners, 15% off. Woohoo! Hold on. Retractable banners.
Yep.
Which web page is going to load faster? Jeez, they're so slow. Okay, so it looks like the stands are like $50, and the printing is
I'm seeing a retractable banner for 131. I don't know if that includes.
yeah, they have some new ones for like 150-ish.
I think we're talking about 150 bucks to 200 maybe tops to do a.
That's what I was looking for, like a ballpark thing.
Right.
I don't even know where to get one of these things these days. I can talk to.
I googled it, ended up at Vistaprint, and
Vistaprint's website didn't load for me.
no, well, it did for me.
It said, we're sorry, this page cannot be found. Oh man, they come in different sizes. You can get tabletop ones, 3-dimensional, multi-layered, retractable banners. Okay, I'm getting into a rabbit hole. Yeah, I would say if we plan on a budget being around $250, that's not a price that we could get two printed versions and one pop-up stand and swap them out from event to event. We had to.
We should also, I mean, I think just having a discussion about, you raised this before, Jen, what are we trying to do? What is the message? What literature, we've jumped onto the banner and not talked about the bigger picture. Like, what are we giving people at this event? Or, what is the goal? Is the goal to sit down with them and do a demo, like side by side, to show them a site? Do you want to try and do the Pantheon style, stand in front of your booth and talk through what is the goal?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't have an answer for that.
I don't either. I mean, I feel like right now the message should be, if you're on Drupal 7, Backdrop is going to be the most affordable option for you.
Sure.
But if we get people who come up to the booth who aren't on Drupal 7 and they're like, sell me on your CSS, sell me on your CMS, then we should go back to our mission about, like, this is something that's trying to help you do what you need to do in the most affordable way possible.
But what are the, right.
A demo will be good. I think a demo of a completed site is probably better than the demo they're going to get on backdropcms.org. I don't know if I have one of those, but we could maybe find a nonprofit site that would be safe to let, fire up a local copy or something and let people poke around and change stuff in. And then that way they can navigate the way you'd normally navigate and edit pages the way you'd normally edit them. And then we can show them some of the back end stuff if they're curious about, like, layouts. I think are a killer feature. Show them configuration management if they're more on the developer side of things, like how do I deploy stuff. But yeah, it will probably be really different for every person that comes up. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think if we're going to, yeah, I don't know. I feel like also seeing completed websites is compelling for people too. So trying to get them to be like, other people are on this thing and it's working for them would be good. I know a couple people from Palante are going to be there and they offered it at the desk. So it would be good if we had some direction to give them. It would be like,
right.
Yeah.
But it's, if you're a vendor that's selling the service of doing this, like, the next steps are kind of obvious, right? We're trying to make contact, follow up with us, we'll follow up with you. It's like, what are we telling people the next thing to do is? One of the things, I don't know, and that's the hard part, right? We have individual vendors or, contractors here in the group. But as an organization, we've got nothing to sell them. We've got nothing to hook them in.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm just brainstorming here. An example, something to do might be to have sort of a webinar or even a series of webinars on building a Backdrop site that's put on by Backdrop volunteers that we could get people registered for, right? So it's a way of sort of hooking them in, and then we could, through that process, sort of help them find the next steps. I mean, I thought about, can we give them a free sandbox site to play with? Well, we could do that right now through, say, Pantheon, but I don't know if I want to do that. If I'd want to do that through Pantheon, unless Pantheon wanted to co-sponsor this, or we've just been working with Platform SH. Would that be our goal? Like, let's get them with a working site that they can play with.
So are you talking about demo sites, the same that we have Tagboat, but living longer than one day?
Well, I don't know. It could be either. Well, presumably lasting longer than a day, but how long, I don't know. The point is, a day wouldn't be useful because they're at a conference, right? So the goal would be like, here, we've got this sandbox set up for you. It's going to be here for a month. You can come back and play with it. To me, that feels like it would be a more solid thing for someone to walk away from the booth with.
I think that Simply Test Me used to say that the sandbox will play in 24 hours or something like that, and then you could press a button and say request for it to live longer. I'm not sure if Tugboat can do that for us, but that would be a question for Nate, I think, because he's played around with it. The reason why I'm mentioning that is that if it is supported, I would like us to have that demo page be a single point of entry for people wanting to test Backdrop, plus it's free, so it wouldn't have the burden of platform estates or
Right. Yeah, that's my concern about them. But they have ready to go long-term solutions. Tugboat doesn't. But if we could get the Tugboat thing set up, sort of branded by us and not Tugboat, I mean, we can thank them and stuff. But
yeah, maybe we can discuss this with Nate.
I don't know.
Maybe it can be a separate button or like a checkbox that says long-term.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you call the ones not temporary but throwaway demos, and then
Yeah.
I don't know. We can also talk to the folks at Tugboat and see if they already do any of this stuff as part of a like sales pitch process. If they have like sites that last longer or something.
I feel like Nate said that we could set this for whatever we wanted, and we chose to do like a day because that made sense for our use case. But I suspect that we could set up something up, especially for limited use, that was longer. I mean, we don't want like 10,000 sites set up for 6 months that nobody's using. But if we did it a limited run where there were only 20 of them, that might not be a big deal.
Yeah. The other thing is that if no worries. I'll need to check if Tugboat supports anything like that, but we could be sending out email notifications after the creation of it and saying it will be destroyed unless you activate it in like the next 3 days or something like that.
So again, we're jumping a little bit to the solution before we've defined the problem. Like what are we trying to sell people to walk away and do? And play with the sandbox is one, sign up for a webinar, that's another thing. But I think we ought to have something that, because just talking to people at a booth and then not having a follow-up thing for them, I think is going to have limited impact.
Yeah, I think getting them to join the mailing list would be good. So
well, that's obvious. Yeah.
Plus the other thing is
actually that is a big one. Yeah. Go ahead.
The Tugboat solution does not provide anything for themers. Like if they want to develop their own custom theme, they have no way to upload it. I think.
Well, I don't think we're trying to solve that problem.
Okay.
If you get to that stage, then you need to figure out your hosting. This is just a chance for people to play with the UI, test it out, see what it's like. Okay.
I have one last quick sort of like mention before we close. So specifically, the trigger for that was issue 3549. This was a simple request to sort of like, if the the core self updates are disabled, then we should sort of like link to the page for people to enable it if they wish. But then when I started working on a PR just to fix certain things, I started getting annoyed about many things that come back to the merge the update pages. So we're about a month away from the next release, so I would like to tackle those. And then those other two things, adding the dedicated security page and the dedicated performance page, seem simple enough tasks. Like we need to set the redirects for the menu items, like the routing, and then we just need to figure out what we put in these pages. So I just wanted to say, do we want to do this during the 1.x cycle or wait for 2. something?
I would be fixing the merging the installer updater pages sooner rather than later. I feel like every time I use that, I'm confused by it, and I think it would be good to get that sorted out. I think because we have the go-to duplicated wrapper, that is possible now. I don't know. I think the security page, it was a security report, wasn't it? Like under the reports section.
Oh, yeah, we could do that for the report section. My main pet peeve now is this. So if you see this, take a look at the screenshot in that issue, the last that I posted, 3549, and leave aside the suggestion with that I have specific for that issue. There's so many UX issues, like, so we have the enabled and disabled themes and modules like in separate tables. And if you click the select all checkbox for one, everything gets selected, but not the select all buttons that are separate. We append the word theme next to themes, even if we are in the themes page, but we don't do it for modules or layouts. We say themes, but we list everything there, including core. So this is a big, like, it seems like a messy bit of the UI, and I really would like us to fix it.
Yeah,
Like, it annoys me a lot.
yeah, me too.
Yeah. So yeah, so I'm gonna finish on that. I'm the advocate for that allowing sort of like disabled text formats to be re-enabled thing. Once I finish with that, I think I'm gonna take up on that.
Okay.
But yeah, is that something that would belong in the UX sort of like discussions, like these meetings?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool.
Let's add it.
All right, I think we're good.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up this meeting, and we'll meet again in 3 minutes. Active development tasks.
All right, cool.
Bye.